Hello, everybody. This is Brad Lewis with Premier Marketing. Thank you for joining us today. Appreciate you taking time out of your busy schedule to join Sean and I for today's call. Just a little housekeeping before we get started here. We are going to be covering some really good stuff on the 5 reasons why everyone should own life insurance. Anytime you listen to Sean speak, he always gives great content, not only for educational purposes, but also sales ideas that come into play. That's one thing I've learned from Sean is everything comes back to a sales idea or concept that you can use for your clients. So make sure you're ready to hear a lot of good reasons why your client should own life insurance. With that, I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Sean Ruggiero. He is our managing partner with Integrity Marketing Group. Sean, you can take it away, buddy. Thank you.
All right, thanks, Brad. Appreciate it. As Brad said, we're going to talk about why everyone needs life insurance. Specifically, there's 5 reasons, but then there's some ancillary, let's call it some ancillary motivation or reasons why we have a license and why we do this. And Brad, Premier sells a lot of Med Advantage. Is that accurate? I mean, you all do annuities, you all do life insurance, the full gamut, but you have a lot of people who are going to be getting ready here for open enrollment. Is that accurate?
That's right. Yeah, it's kicking off real quick here. So, yeah, the majority, I won't say the majority, but a large portion, probably 70% of our agents out there sell med subs for us.
Right, right. And that's excellent because when you engage someone, and I've taught this for a long time, if you had a final expense lead or a mortgage protection lead or a Medicare supplement lead, you're missing the boat if you treat that as only selling a final expense or mortgage protection policy or a med sup. What you have is a human being, right? And your license, life health license, allows you to offer complete protection. We talked about that on a previous webinar, Brad, right? We sell life insurance to protect human capital. My human capital is my ability to do, learn, and earn. And if I am going to pass, I'm going to take a tax-free cash benefit that pays to my loved ones. But we also protect financial capital. When you're selling med sup, you're protecting people's budgets, right? They have no idea what kind of healthcare costs they're looking at and where the gaps are going to be in their Medicare plan. So selling a med sup or a Med Advantage plan protects their financial capital. Annuities protect people's financial capital. We talked about annuities on the last presentation. But what I want to focus on here is, I would argue, Brad, and we talked about this on the phone, I believe this is my most impactful presentation that I do. And the reason why is because when it gets down to brass tacks, no matter what you specialize in, the vast majority of you are going to have a life insurance license. And a life insurance license allows you to run the gamut and protect human capital, financial capital. But let's get back to basics. And I'm going to give you 5 reasons plus some ancillary motivation why everyone, and I mean everyone, needs life insurance. Why is that important? Because you're going to engage people. Hey, open enrollment's busy. Maybe we put a pin in it. We come back next week or we come back after open enrollment. But you are sitting down with so many people. You have Facebook contacts, you have email contacts, you have a phone. I don't know if agents still use those very often, Brad, but it's a phone. You pick it up and hit numbers and it calls people, right? And all of these wonderful tools allow you to reach people. But rather than just saying, do you have any life insurance? When's the last time you reviewed your life insurance, right? That's pretty surface level. I want you to have a very easy to understand, but deep dive into why everyone needs life insurance. So here's something I teach. Now, I am a securities agent, okay? So I am an IAR. I owned an RIA, sold it to Integrity. Lots of certifications, RICP, CFP, CEP, CHFC, right? And I'm not trying to brag, Brad, I think you know me well enough. I'm trying to tell you, hey, have some confidence in what I'm sharing with you, because I'm sharing with you something that is missing today. It's missing. All right. Here in this graphic, this is the proper financial pyramid. At the bottom of the financial pyramid, what do we have? We have protection. And then we have savings, right? That idea of 90-day savings, 6-month savings, maybe a year savings, and then growth. What's growth? That's long-term growth investment funds. That's what I'm going to retire on. That's a 401k, an IRA, a SEP, whatever it might be. Then we taper up to risk and speculation, right? Brad, we live in what I call the Robin Hood era, the Robin Hood day. And what I'm referring to is the Robin Hood investment app. You know how many people I've had come to me, Brad, and they say, hey, I got $5,000 inheritance. You know, they're 26 years old. And shoot, sometimes they're 46 years old. I got $5,000 inheritance. Which stock should I buy? Hey, should I go buy GameStop? And I say, well, let me pause you there. You got 4 kids, a spouse. How much life insurance do you have? Well, none. Okay. Let me teach you the proper financial pyramid. It's in my book, The 7 Benefits of FIAs for Retirement. And the reason I point that out is because it doesn't matter if you sell life insurance, securities, a little of both, med sup, if you're a CFP, if you're a whatever, you must understand and imbue and teach this financial pyramid. It is universal. And that's a cool thing, Brad. Sometimes we talk about life insurance or IULs or whatever it might be. And you can go out and you can find, usually with a confirmation bias, you can find some negative press or positive press, whatever you want. Google proper financial pyramid, and this is what you find, or some very close variation. It is universal. It's on the CFP exam. It's on the RICP exam, right? This is the gospel. And most people don't execute. Well, let me ask you something. If you are out there selling life insurance, then aren't you able to sell the protection part? Protect someone's human capital? Isn't that the foundation that you can help people with? And you're not doing it to make a sale, to rake in a commission. You're doing it because you want to help people. So I think that's the first things we need to understand, how to build a proper financial capital. Now let's start about, proper financial pyramid, protecting human capital and financial capital. So let's talk about the first reason why everyone needs life insurance. The first reason is that we need to insure that human capital. It goes right back to this financial pyramid. We must have protection of our human capital. And don't think that's just for young people. Brad, you know how many people I've sat with in my 20-year career that, yes, they're 22 years old. They don't have a lot of financial capital. They're just starting their IRA or the Roth IRA or buying a house, paying off a house. But they have a lot of runway left. Their ability to do, learn, and earn is quite extensive. And we sell them life insurance. But, you know, I've also sat down, I remember one specifically, a man in Caldwell, Idaho, 81 years old, Brad, 81. And he worked at a cheese factory. He had Social Security and a paycheck. He didn't have a dime saved up. So he didn't have financial capital. He only had his human capital. And when he died, his wife, who was much healthier and 6 or 7 years younger, was going to suffer because they were going to lose one of the Social Securities and lose a paycheck. He needed to protect his human capital. So doesn't matter if they're just young, and that's obviously the key candidate who needs to protect their young family and all that stuff, or if they're getting older. Almost everyone has value in their human capital, right? If you're sitting there in a coma in a vegetative state, I don't mean that with any off-color remarks or disregard to people who are in that. I'm being very serious. Unless you're in a state like that, your human capital has value regardless of your age. And so we need to protect your loved ones. We talked about the complete protection, but let's talk about the facts. So this is based, Brad, this is based on roughly a $60,000, $65,000 annual income. Lots of agents on this call, if you've been in this game for a couple of years, kind of made it through that survival time, got some renewals coming, built up a little book of business, then you're making more money than that. But just based on $60,000, $65,000 a year, did you know the average American will earn over $3 million in their lifetime? What happens if they die too early? What happens if they use that human capital? Well, according to LIMRA, a study showed that only 54% of Americans have life insurance. Only 54% of adult Americans, right? Those that need it and could qualify for it. And 27% of those are provided by their company. They're not going to be there when they need it, right? If someone gets sick and can't work, they lose that benefit. And oftentimes it's not enough anyways. So even if 54% have life insurance, how many of those people have $3 million life insurance? Brad, have you ever noticed that we have some hypocrites in this industry? All industries do. But we have some serious hypocrites because we have people making more than $65,000 a year who have far less than $3 million of coverage. Are you actually going to go sell life insurance and not have enough life insurance yourself? So start by looking at yourself, believe in what you're doing, and know that if you die, because it can happen, you need to protect your family and protect the loved ones and protect your human capital. So that's reason number one, because Americans are underinsured. Plain and simple, it's the easiest one. And a lot of people know that. That's not a real deep dive, right? But we should know that, and we should know the statistics. Number two, another fairly basic one, covering your final expenses. A funeral alone, Brad, can cost nearly $10,000. Social Security covers less than $300. That harkens back to the 30s, right? Okay, we'll give you this much to help, buy a casket and lower that person into the ground. That money hasn't increased because Social Security is strained. By the way, it will never go away. It will just continue to tweak and adjust, but it can't go away because it is an economic fiber that is absolutely necessary for the health of our financial, our economic world in the United States. So Social Security will always be there, but the death benefit of $300 or $280, whatever it is, that's not enough to cover the final expenses. So you ask yourself, and Brad, I've known some really selfish people in my life. I won't name them, but really selfish people. Okay, it's always kick the can down the road. It's always someone else to do this. It's always, oh, well, I'll pray on it, but I'm not going to do anything about it. And don't take that the wrong way, y'all. That wasn't meant to be a religious slam. I'm saying I've seen all different variations of the ostrich syndrome, right? The ostriches stick their head in the sand. And so I think, gosh, are you really going to let your family take care of your final expenses? Well, I have some cash saved up, right? I have some equity in the house. Well, guess what? Most Americans are going to be dying with debt. Now, I gave you the answer. It's at least one of the two if I said most. But everyone, I want you to look at this here, this graphic. 36, 45, 68, 73%. What percentage of Americans, according to debt.org, okay, a nonprofit that studies this and tries to help people out, what percentage of Americans die with debt? You want to guess? Everybody take a quick guess, right? Is it 45, 68, or is this kind of just blunt force trauma? Yes, it's 73%. Debt.org reports in 2021 that 73% of Americans die with debt. So what I'm doing is I'm calling BS a little bit when you sit down with a client and say, oh, I've got this or I've got that. Now, I'm not saying that debt follows to your children. There are some instances, but they can. And a lot of people don't realize this, Brad. But a creditor can show up at your estate at the probate court and demand that they get paid out of your assets. A lot of people don't realize that, but it can happen, and it does happen. They can lien your house. Oh, I've got my house to sell. Well, guess what? If they take first lien position, then they can not only sell it, but they can sell it for a fire sale to cover their debt. And all this money and time and blood and sweat and tears that you put into saving on this asset, that you said, hey, this is how I'm going to help my family. This is what I'm going to pass on to my loved ones. You run the risk that they're not going to be able to get nearly as much. They're going to get pennies on the dollar because you're carrying debt. So let's purchase a final expense policy, all right? It's never too late to help out who we love. Number three. Now, the first two I think were pretty obvious. Let's start talking about things that we don't often talk about. And these are great conversation starters. Why? Well, I'm going to tell you right now, and it's in the next slide. The vast majority of Americans, especially the middle class, do not have long-term care. Brad, I'm 48. All right. I looked at long-term care at 44, at 45, 48. I don't have a long-term care policy. Now, I have some plans, but you know what? It's not cheap. It's not cheap. I carry a bit of weight, a muscular weight. I'm in good shape, but I'm obese. It's a tough underwrite for me to get through. It is expensive, even at 48. Well, I'm in the business of insurance. I'm looking plenty early when it would still be affordable, and I can afford it, right? How many people, Brad, and you all probably run into it all the time. How many people are 65 and say, I probably should check out some of that long-term care? Well, you're checking it out when you're later in life, when it's going to be more expensive, and I mean way more expensive, when you might have trouble getting qualified because of some health issues, and you're running into retirement. You're going to be on a fixed income. And now you're going to start spending $2,000, $2,060, $2,300 a month for you and your spouse to have long-term care coverage. Doesn't happen. In fact, most Americans not only don't have it, they don't have the ability to get long-term care. So what are you going to do at the end of your life? Well, let's look at the statistics. There is a huge need for long-term care. Longtermcare.gov reports that 70% of us who reach age 65, does that number sound familiar? The age when people are eligible for Medicare? 70% of people who you sit down with are going to require some form of long-term care. Now, Brad, I've told you this before, whether it's on a webinar or just personally speaking with you. Brad and I are friends, and I said, women are smarter and tougher than men, okay? It's kind of funny because they just don't care if men think differently because they know. Well, it's no surprise that women who are smarter and tougher are going to live 3.7 years on average. 3.7 years in need of long-term care. So those 70%ers who don't die peacefully or tragically without needing long-term care, the women need 3.7 years of coverage and the men 2.2 years. And then 20% of those people, 20% of the 70% will need it for more than 5 years. So there's a huge need for it, but only 5%, and this number I believe is a little inflated. I wanted to find there is a few different resources that cited how many people have long-term care. The highest one was 5% where I went with that. I've seen numbers as low as 2.8%. And who has the long-term care? The very few people. They're people who are fairly well off, right? They purchased a long time ago because long-term care is very difficult to secure these days. So we have a huge need for long-term care, but we have a massive void, this absolute abyss where no one has help, and they're only getting older, and they're only getting more concerned. Inflation is rising. How in the heck are they going to take care of this long-term care pandemic? Well, they can use something, let me get back to this, they can use something called a living benefit, right? Any permanent policy, whether it's a standard whole life, whether it's a universal life, whether it's an IUL, whether it's a VUL, any standard or any variation of a whole life policy, Brad, has living benefits. Now, why do they call it living benefits? Well, it's like a very descriptive term, okay, a very literal term of what the benefit is. It is a benefit in your life insurance policy that allows you to take money while you're still alive. So if you're terminally ill, if you have a critical illness, cancer, stroke, heart attack, AIDS, leukemia, I mean, the list goes on and on, then they allow you to access a percentage and a significant percentage of your death benefit tax-free prior to dying, which can help offset this cost. Isn't that a wonderful thing? A lot of people don't know that and they don't solve enough. If I looked at the previous two reasons, well, people don't have enough life insurance. Well, people are also selfish, so they don't care. Well, they need to cover their final expenses. See Rule 1, they're selfish, they don't care. But the need for long-term care, when they're still alive, suffering, seeing their finances being sucked down a black hole, seeing their spouse, and I say wife because women live longer than men statistically, suffer, now it's real. So do something about it. Talk about the living benefits inside a life insurance policy. Imagine what one Facebook post could do. Imagine what one conversation could do, one letter. Download your client list for Medicare and send them a letter talking about, hey, great news. For those of you who think it's too late to provide long-term care coverage and protection of your family, I have an alternative, and it's called living benefits, right? So I could have a $200,000 policy. It's a death benefit that I just purchased 3 years ago or this year. And if I have that need, which 70% of us will at age 65 or older, then I have some way of taking care of it. And I don't molest the rest of my finances, draining it and leaving the surviving spouse in financial duress. All right. Now, what about this? What about this, Brad? What if someone says, what if I sit down with Brad? Brad's 65 and Brad is loaded, right? Brad is loaded. And he says, Sean, frankly, I don't need life insurance. I don't need long-term care. I'm self-insured. Now, here's what's funny. This slide was taken from an actual client that I met with. I'll call him Frank. It wasn't his actual name. His name was Todd. No, I'm just kidding. And so Frank sits down with me, and he's a little bit shocked at the cost of long-term care. And he says, you know what, Sean, just bag it, save your time. I'm self-insured. See, Sean, I've got stock in Amazon that I bought when it was still under $200 a share. Now, you have to understand there's been like 4 splits since then. So if you look at Amazon's stock price right now, it is like 120 or 180, whatever. No, that's actually the equivalent of about $3,000 a share, $4,000 a share, because he's held it for so long. And then I have this 68 Stingray Corvette, or the 65 Stingray Corvette. Thing's worth like 200 grand. I got a condo on the beach. I got a boat, right? Andy Samberg, I'm on a boat. Most people don't know what I'm talking about, but I got my house paid off. Sean, I even have emergency cash. So here's the deal, Brad. We went through each one of these. Okay, so which of these are you going to liquidate when you need long-term care? You going to sell the stock? No. That I get the one last bastion of benefit from the IRS. I get something called a step up in basis. I'm giving that to the kids and grandkids, and they are going to rake it in. I'm so proud and happy to be able to provide that, because no one gave that to me when I was young. What about the 68 Corvette or the 65 Corvette? I don't remember what year it was. No. My daughter loves that. And Brad, if anyone has a daughter, I have one daughter, 3 boys, 1 daughter, she can get whatever she wants. No way I'm selling that Corvette. How about the condo? If I die, my wife really wants the condo. I don't see myself selling. I got to hold on to that. The boat, the boys love the boat. They go fishing on the boat. That brings back such memories. The boat is actually named, right, father and son. It's our thing. I can't sell the boat. What about the house? Well, my wife still lives in the house, right? I'm not ready to sell the house. And Brad, I'm not making this up. You can't make this up. What about the cash? And it was a significant amount of cash, something like $75,000, $100,000, just emergency funds. Yeah, but Sean, if I sell that, I have no more emergency funds. What the heck? It's emotional. We are emotionally connected. We are emotionally connected to all of these things. And rightfully so. They represent our life. They represent our sacrifice. Again, blood, sweat, tears. Well, you know what we're not emotionally attached to, Brad? Life insurance. Have you ever said to someone, boy, I love that life insurance policy. I go to bed and I grab the policy and I tuck it under my pillow and have a good night's sleep. No one is emotionally attached to their life insurance policy. And just like a Star Trek movie where they have these magical shields that pop up and take the lasers, so it protects the ship, life insurance does the same thing. See, you can sell a life insurance policy that you can use living benefits for to protect all of those assets. So you no longer have to decide what you liquidate. For pennies on the dollar, you have that shield that protects all your assets. And now all those things that you worked so hard for, that you're so happy and so proud to give to your loved ones, that can happen. Reason number 4, protect your estate and cover your taxes. Now, you worked a lifetime to create wealth. Do you really want to give it away? Now, follow with me here. There's more to this, Brad. And this is where we start to get a little bit more complex, but this is easy to understand. You're just not talking about it with your clients. Brad, you and I are both pretty old, right? 87 through 97. Seems like a long time ago. I think we were in high school, right? So in 87, 97, there was an exemption of $600,000 on the federal death tax. And then anything beyond that was a 55% rate. For many of you, I'm speaking Greek. You don't understand what I'm talking about. Okay, here's what I'm talking about. There are 19 states that have a death tax, an estate tax, whatever you want to call it. When you die, they calculate your estate. By the way, that includes houses, investments, cash, stocks, bonds, even life insurance. Wow, it's kind of scary, right? And then they will give you an exemption, okay? They will give you a certain amount that you're exempt. Anything beyond the exemption, the state takes a certain percent. And those percents aren't really big at the state level, but it's kind of a nuisance because you also have federal. Now, unless you're not a citizen of the United States of America, right, and actually most countries are even higher, then you are subject to this tax. People don't think about it. They don't realize it. They don't realize how much of a struggle this could have been back in 1987, 88, 92, 96, 97, right? Because even though people made far less money back then, and inflation, we're talking 30 years ago now, 40 years ago now, my goodness, or 35. Anyone who died with an estate higher than $600,000 had to pay 55% of the remainder to the federal government. Holy crap, that's a lot. In 2001, around the dot-com bubble bursting and the influx of money, it oftentimes depends on who's got power of the executive branch, the congressional branch, whatever, how they want to pass those laws. But then it raised up to $1 million. And then it stayed at $1.5 million, but they lowered the percentage from 55 to 50 to 49, 48. And I don't want to give a history lesson here, but you can see even in 2008, which is kind of recent, it was $2 million. How many people die with more than $2 million of an estate? A lot. And it was a 45% tax. Now understand one thing, your exemption passes to your spouse if you're married. So Brad, if you were in 2008 and you died, your $2 million exemption goes to your wife. So now you have a $4 million exemption. But still, there's a lot of people that would be subjected to it. In 2010, it dropped. Well, don't worry about that. It was a kind of a snafu when they were closing a congressional session, but it was 35%. Okay, and then it increased with inflation. So it went to 5 and 5.1 and 5.2 and 5.3, and then under Trump, it went to 11.8 or 11.18, and it dropped it to the highest taxable income bracket, which I think is fair. Why have a special jacked up tax just to take people's money when they die? I understand we need the money as a federal government, but 37%. And it increases with inflation. And so, Brad, with inflation, the current exemptions they're up to like 20 or 12 point something percent. So, Brad, now you have a 12 point something $1 million exemption, and then it goes to your spouse if you die. So we're talking some pretty wealthy people, right? Wouldn't you agree? Not a lot of people die 25, 26, 28 million. But here's the problem. That is set to sunset. Sorry for the redundancy of that word, but that is going to sunset in 2025. So when it sunsets, knowing that the federal government, after COVID, after funding the Ukrainian war, after keeping infrastructure and social services and all these things going and fighting inflation, who here thinks that taxes are going to stay the same? Who's going to say they're lowering? Absolutely 100%. I promise you that exemption will come back down to a much lower amount, maybe 3 million, whatever it is. And people are going to see this tax again. But why is that important? Because we need to start preparing. You all know plenty of people who, if you project it forward, they would be concerned that their estate would die with more than maybe what the $3 million exemption is going to be. We're speculating at this point, but it's time to start being knowledgeable about this and preparing. So let me show you the solution. The solution is something I call the intelligence of life insurance planning. Let's look at this portfolio, Brad. It's a hypothetical portfolio, but it's 5.95 million. I probably should have just made it 6 million for the presentation, but I made it 5.95 million. And 5.95 million is comprised of stocks, bonds, collectibles, cash, one house, two house, right? And this portfolio represents their estate. Now, in the future, that estate could be subjected to some of these lower exemptions and higher taxes. Let's say it's 3 million, or right? So 3 million, and then they bang you over the head for 45%. You could owe $1 million upon your death. And now your family, your loved ones, it's not the spouse, that they carry your exemption. And when a couple dies, it's the second to die. But you get my point. The children, the grandchildren, the charities, whomever you want to give this money to, they're going to get less money. And even worse, they have to figure out how to liquidate the estate to pay for the taxes. Well, maybe they're selling taxes when they shouldn't, or they just got to step up in basis, and now they're squandering that to have to sell. Or they're having to sell a house and they're selling in a bad real estate market, right? When rates are really high and people aren't buying. I could go through tons of scenarios, but it's never a good idea to have to sell something when you don't have control of when to sell it. But people are going to be forced. Their hand is going to be forced. They're going to have to sell it. So how about this? How about they take $200,000 out of the estate, maybe stocks, maybe bonds, maybe cash, doesn't matter. They take $200,000 out of the estate. In this case, I took it out of the stocks. So the stocks went from 2.2 million to 2 million. And with that $200,000, they bought a whole life policy for $1 million. Single premium, they bought it for $1 million. And they put it into an irrevocable trust, right? Like an ILIT, 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 irrevocable life insurance trust. Now keep in mind, you as an agent, unless you are an attorney, which is a seldom combo, you can't write up a trust. You need an attorney. There's tons of attorneys out there that are happy to work with you, and you can cross-pollinate some business. But you set up an irrevocable trust. You set up an ILIT with your children, your loved ones as the beneficiary, and now your $5.95 million estate went to 5.75, but also spawned and created a $1 million separate estate into this island. So now 5.95 million went to 6.75 million, which is higher, Brad, right? 6.75 or 5.9, 6.75 is. And when you die, this $1 million pays tax-free to your loved ones, and they can cover all of the estate tax and maybe have some leftover cash for fun, for investment, for your funeral, whatever it might be. See, that's the intelligence of life insurance planning. And the last thing is creating a legacy. Brad, when we die, what do we want written on our tombstone? How do we want to be remembered? I'll tell you what, it's not how fast your car went 0 to 60. It's not how many zeros are in your bank account. No one gives a crap. In fact, that can create some animosity sometimes. It's what you did. And a gift, a final gift of generosity, I always say, can make up for a lifetime of mistakes. So how do you want to leave a legacy? Well, many people are looking later in life to start giving money away to a charity. Well, I want to ask you something. I want to challenge you. I want you all as agents to think about this. What makes a bigger impact? Giving a couple $100 a month or giving $100,000 tax-free as a lump sum? Obviously, it's the latter. And there's some benefits to that, right? If I'm helping a charity out, okay, and I want to give them a death benefit. Let's say I have $200 in my budget. I could just give $200 away every month, or I could put it into a life insurance policy and name the beneficiaries. What are the benefits of that? Well, there's a couple of them. First and foremost, and in this one, I ran a Mutual of Omaha IUL Express, Brad. So just FYI, so everyone sees what I'm looking at here. A $2,400 premium on a 60-year-old got me an $84,000 death benefit, tax-free. Which is more powerful, $200 a month or $84,000? So if I died right away, bam, they're getting $84,000. So wait a minute, instead of giving them $200 a month, $2,400 for that year, I gave them $84,000. Yeah, but the chances of me dying at 61, they're pretty slim. So let's go a little further down. So now I could have been giving them $200 every month for 20 years. That's $48,000. But if I die and now I'm 80, now I'm much closer to death, I'm going to give them $84,000. And if I live to 88, I'm still $60,000 to give $84,000. I'm going to give them more money by putting it through a life insurance policy. I am leveraging that money. I'm leveraging that charity. But here's what's more important. What if, Brad, I have a change? What if I have health problems? What if I have complications? What if I need some money? Well, guess what? If I have a life insurance policy, I can take a living benefit or I can take a cash withdrawal from it. Even if my beneficiary is the charity, I can take cash from it, giving myself more flexibility. Number two, I can also change the beneficiary. What if something happens? How many times have we seen on the news that a certain charity gets in trouble because people are embezzling money, or the charity supports something that you don't believe in? Well, shoot, I've just been giving them $200 a month for the last 20 years. You have the ability to change the beneficiary and change that percentage however you want. And you're going to make a much bigger impact. No one gets a wing of a library named after them for giving $200 a month. But you give someone $100,000, they're going to remember you, right? So if you want to be remembered, if you want to give to a charity, do it through a life insurance policy. And again, Brad, that's something we don't talk about a lot. These last ones, number 4, number 5, talking about estate planning and talking about charitable giving. And a lot of people want to do that. And you sound less like a salesman, right? Well, did you know that 53% of Americans are underinsured? Yeah, I don't care. I've heard that pitch before. But what about this? What if we said, are you currently giving to any charities, or do you plan on giving to any charities? Because I have a much more intelligent way to leverage your money and provide more protection to you and your loved ones while you're alive, and then give a better gift, a higher, more impactful gift to the charity when you pass. Would you like to hear about it? See, makes sense, right? Those are the 5 reasons. But let's talk quickly about the bigger picture. Brad, give me 10 minutes and then we'll open up for questions. We'll have this all wrapped up within the hour, okay? What you do matters. All right, let's talk about something that might be a little sensitive for some people. It shouldn't be, but it might be, because we have to dance around everything that has to do with race or socioeconomic status. Well, I'm going to hit you right in the face with it. Let's look at home ownership. Home ownership is one of the biggest litmus tests of the economic health of a socioeconomic status group, of an SES group. Okay. I believe very much to my soul. In fact, it's something that has consumed me. It's why I started safemoneysmart.org. And there are some other things that I've worked on and am working on through integrity to try to help uplift lower socioeconomic status groups. All right, minority groups, Black, Hispanics, Native Americans, Asian Pacific Islanders, whatever it might be. But some of these more impoverished minority groups, I could post on Facebook. I don't have a Facebook account, but I could post on social media. I could go to a rally, and those are all great things. I get it, right? Show support. But you really want to make an impact, you have to have money and education. Money and education. Why, Brad, are there so many fewer financial advisors? I mean, way fewer financial advisors in minority neighborhoods, in lower economic groups, right? Because there's no money, or there's less money. Well, why is there less money? And why are people not buying life insurance policies? Because there's less education. There's not financial education. Well, that needs to stop. How can you stop? By teaching and providing life insurance and a legacy plan for minority groups, for groups that are in lower socioeconomic status. It's the facts, right? Isn't that one way to do it? See, what if we started providing life insurance or mortgage protection life insurance for Black Americans, for Hispanic Americans? We could lift this bar up so they weren't under 50% homeownership, they were over 50, and then they were over 60. But in order to do that, we need to be selling life insurance, and selling life insurance with a plan, maybe under a directive trust or will, that says that this life insurance is earmarked for paying off a home, and a home that stays in the family and builds wealth and builds stability. What we do matters, and life insurance can do this. Whether the person can afford a $100,000 life insurance policy or $1 million life insurance policy is irrelevant. They need to understand that life insurance can do it. They have control of where the funds go. They have a directive on what the funds can do, and they can put it into a budget that makes it affordable, and they can change what the future is going to be for their children and for their grandchildren, and change these trends that we see here. How about widows and poverty? What you do matters as a life insurance agent. I gave you 5 reasons why everyone needs them, but now I'm giving you reasons why you should want to sell life insurance. According to the Center of Retirement in Boston, so Center for Retirement Research in Boston, 1 of 6 widows fall below the poverty line upon the death of their husband. Again, this is statistics. Women live longer than men. Yet when we go into those homes, Brad, who's usually telling it how it is? Who's usually making the financial decisions? I could give you numerous stories, but I don't want to go too long on how the man was making the financial decisions. But what bothers me is he's making the financial decisions when he's no longer going to be around. I'll share with you one story. It was in Rathdrum, Idaho, north of me here. And this gentleman, in a mildly condescending way, told me I don't need the life insurance. And his wife was so worried because they didn't have hardly any cash saved up. And she knew it would be a burden because they were going to lose one of the Social Securities. And in fact, he had a small pension, only like $250 a month, but they were going to lose that too because the pension died when he died. And you know what his answer was? His answer was, I think it was like a Studebaker, or maybe it was a Chevelle. I'm sorry, a lot of people collect classic cars up here. That car's worth $100,000. Well, probably not. You know, go on eBay, it's worth $52,000 maybe. but whatever. She can sell that. Okay, man, right? You sometimes feel like calling them names, but okay. So my understanding is that you're not going to buy a life insurance policy. You're going to wait till she dies. And I was staring at these coffee mugs, and they were stained, and they were his and hers. They were these coffee mugs they must have had for 20 years, Brad. And your wife, upon burying you and spending the money that cost, is going to come down to the kitchen, look at that coffee mug, and be missing the man that was in her life for the last 50 years. And now she's supposed to somehow hop on eBay Motors or what God knows what, because she has no clue, and sell your car so she can live? Come on now. We've got to take control in the home and help people out. And these statistics are real. So when we help people, we have to vie for the woman that is in there, the surviving spouse. Now, I'm not being sexist. I'm quoting stats, and these are statistics based on who tends to live longer. Sometimes it's the reverse. Sometimes it's two men in a marriage. It doesn't matter. You must speak up and protect the person so that the surviving spouse is not in poverty. And believe you me, especially in the med advantage situations, you're going to run into those scenarios. Higher education. What did I say? Changes. Is it posting on Facebook? No. Is it going to a rally? No. And those are great things, whatever. Money and education. Again, according to the Department of Education, U.S. Department of Education, the National Center of Education Statistics says that 60% of high school students who come from a higher socioeconomic status will obtain a college degree, whereas only 14% from a lower socioeconomic status obtain a college degree. All right, money and education. Have you ever thought of selling an IUL, a life insurance policy, on the parent and the cash accumulation? Did you know it isn't counted against your assets on a Pell Grant, on a government grant? So the child can get full grant status, full financial aid status, yet you could be harvesting $10, $20, $30,000 from your IUL policy. And God forbid the parent dies early when the child is going to college or in college. But that cash-free death benefit now solidifies the fact that you can pay for their college, or maybe multiple children's college or grandchildren's college. See, citing that Americans are underinsured, it doesn't get you a lot of life insurance sales, and it might not motivate you very much. But being able to change the future of a culture, of a socioeconomic status, of a minority group, and allow them to have homes that are paid off and children and grandchildren that are going to college, that makes a difference. And that's why you should care. And that's why people need life insurance. So Brad, hopefully that wasn't too long. We're 9:44. I definitely will have this one thing done within the 60-minute hour, but I want to open it up for any questions. I'm going to probably stop sharing my screen so I can see people or see you, and we'll answer as many questions that we have that we can, if that works for you.
You bet. Thank you very much, Sean. That was great information. I love how you share the story beyond just the products and how to position things and things of that nature. The story is what makes it happen for us. So I'm just going to review here and just see what we have for any questions right now at the moment. So folks out there, if you have any questions, make sure you get them into the question section and we'll see what we have here. So looks like right now we just have comments. Great presentation. Thank you. A few other ones that are very similar to that. So I don't see any questions at the moment, Sean. So we did record this, if that's okay, so we can share it again with folks out there. And we appreciate everybody's participation today. And Sean, thank you for helping us get the word out, especially during Life Insurance Awareness Month. I know we're coming to the end of it, but I couldn't think of a better time to review the reasons for people should own life insurance. I do have a quick question that came in here.
Yeah.
Let me grab it here real quick. So, which is better, and why, an IUL or a whole life policy?
IUL. And here's the only reason I say that. If you're in it for the long term, an IUL. Okay, Brad, I'm going to ask this quickly, but that is an excellent question. I get it all the time. So, Brad, I'm going to be honest. I want you to answer as Brad Lewis. Okay. Brad, we have a couple options when it comes to permanent policies. And the reason I'm talking about permanent policies is because you're at the point in your life where it's less about just the death benefit to protect your human capital, right? Obviously, if you die, you want there to be a tax-free cash benefit to offset your earning power. Does that make sense? Is that a fair statement, Brad?
Yep, it is.
Okay. But you're also getting older and you need to talk about long-term care. You need to talk about estate planning. You need to talk about charitable giving. There's all these different things that we need to encompass. So we have various choices. So whole life, we all have heard of that, but there's lots of different types of whole life. And I want to talk to you about one that I believe in, but I don't want to put my thoughts on you. So I'm going to ask you one simple question. Do you believe that the US stock market is going to, and there's three options, over the next 40 years that you're alive, Brad, and I'm just, 50 years that you're alive, is the US stock market going to go down every year? Is it going to go up and down equally, like up and down 50% of the time? Or is it going to do what it always has done and go up 3 out of 4 years? What do you honestly think? And this is not a trick question, Brad. This is how I ask clients.
No, I think it's going to go up over time, every 3 to 4 years.
Yeah. Well, even if you select the middle one where it goes up half the time, or obviously the last one, then you need to look at an index universal life policy. Because an index universal life policy is a whole life policy that rather than just giving you a cash dividend every year, you're getting 3% or 4% or whatever it is, and paying the premium that's going to be a little higher. An IUL is a form of a whole life policy that rather than giving that dividend, it guarantees that you won't lose money in the policy, but it takes that dividend and it puts it into an option investment, a call option. Now, don't worry about the dynamics of that. I'm not trying to say wave your hand and don't look over here. I'm just saying it's a financial tool. It's a derivative of an investment. A call option invests in an index. And if the index, like the S&P 500, which is the one we usually use, goes up, now you collect a much larger amount than if you just stuck with the whole life dividend. So the reason I asked that question is, Brad, if you believe that the stock market is going to go up more than it goes down, which I believe, and which the U.S. economy is geared for, and the capitalist economy is geared for, because I'm a patriot, I'm a capitalist, and I believe in those things, then that's where you want to put your money. Because one, your premium will be lower, but two, your death benefit and your cash are going to be much higher. So over the next 10, 20, 30 years, as you plan for this, you're going to have more money for cash emergencies, tax-free. You're going to have more money for supplemental income tax-free. You're going to have more money to pass on to your spouse or your loved ones, and you're going to have more money available to offset long-term care costs. So that's why we're going to use an IUL. So does that answer the question in a more pragmatic way, of actually applicable way, and how we would speak with the client?
Yeah, that's a great scenario, a great sales technique to use with clients to make sure that they understand the value of it as well. And Bernadette agrees, the person that asked the question. So
Bernadette's smart. So like I said, girls are smarter than boys anyway. So if there's no more questions, I did want to add one thing as a resource. So Brad, if you could type, my screen's kind of funky right here, avo.com. So avo is Latin, actually, avatari, Italian for lawyer. Avo is AVVO, avo.com. Now, why am I mentioning that? Avo is a fantastic resource. For free, you can ask in an area, city or state, because people pass a bar and are allowed to practice law in a state, just like a life insurance license. I told you that you cannot set up a trust unless you're an attorney, okay? So Avo has categories of attorneys that oftentimes are hungry attorneys that are looking to strike up business, right? And if you go to Avo, you can create a relationship with a local attorney that can help you with this. So if you start talking to people about that ILIT, that insurance life, that irrevocable life insurance trust, or you start talking about people about charitable trust and charitable giving and things like that, you're like, Sean Ruggiero taught on it, but it's still a little foreign to me. Take the slides. Brad, it is my assumption that you're going to hand these slides over to the agents, or am I putting words in your mouth?
Yes, yeah, we have the slides available, as well as we'll have a replay of the webinar.
Perfect. And see, I love that, because then they can take slides and they can present them to clients. Like I don't really know what I'm talking about, but this seemed important to me. Right? This is the first time I've really discussed this or gone down this path, but I want to use my license to its fullest. And I can help you with your future estate planning. Hey, Brad, what if they never change the exemption and it becomes $25 million per person and we have to die with $100 million before the federal government ever takes an estate tax? Well, that's not going to happen. But if it does, woo, right? You still have a death benefit that pays tax free, right? I mean, then great. That's the worst case scenario. So that estate planning one, you're going to need an attorney. Go to avvo.com and post, hey, looking for an attorney. I'm a life insurance agent that's starting to work much more in estate planning. And you'll get very hungry, eager local attorneys that will work with you. And guess what? They'll reciprocate some business too, which is awesome. So I've done that in multiple states and had great success with it.
It's awesome. Another great tip.
All right. Any other questions for me, Brad? Or, whatever.
Nope, that doesn't look like it, Sean. So thanks again for joining us today. Always a pleasure. Appreciate you being a partner of Premier and a partner with integrity. So thanks for all you do, and thanks to everybody for being on the call today. Hey, make sure you reach out to your life marketer, Kathy or Kelly. They'll be happy to share the slides, share the presentation. Give them a call at 1-800-365-8208, and they can get you started with a lot of the things that Sean talked about today. Thanks for joining, everybody.